You're listening to Major Motion Problems, a podcast that explores the best and worst movies of all time to find out if they deserve their Oscar glory or Razzie infamy. I'm Kris.
And I'm James. Every episode, we pick a year at random and watch the Academy Award winner for Best Picture, along with that year's Golden Raspberry loser for Worst Picture.
We will discuss, debate, and determine if the movie world was right in honoring or dishonoring these films.
This episode finds us in 1997. The Oscars gave Best Picture to James Cameron's Titanic, a brief 15-minute short of underwater documentary footage pasted onto 3 hours of sweeping period drama romance.
While the Razzies' cold gaze fell on The Postman, giving Worst Picture to Kevin Costner's post-apocalyptic fable about the power of the United States Postal Service, which is sadly nothing to write home about.
Okay, I wrote that pun. I don't want Kris to be assigned blame for that. I'm sorry.
No. I have at least one really corny mailman, postman, dog pun in my intro. So no, it's fine. And you know what? The movie has a really corny, bad sense of humor too. So if anything, it's in line with the tone, right?
Keeping in line, honoring the Costner vision. I can't wait to talk about The Postman, and I also can't wait to talk about Titanic. And in honor of this being the longest pairing of movies ever to watch on weeknights for a podcast.
Yeah, they are both so long.
Boy.
What a pain to sit. Well, I guess people loved sitting through Titanic in theaters. Maybe The Postman not so much, but it just goes to show that length isn't really a deciding factor in what makes a movie good or bad, right? Because, sometimes you can have a 3-hour movie that feels like a 90-minute movie. Sometimes you can have a 3-hour movie that feels like you've experienced an entire lifetime and you've been reincarnated several times over centuries and centuries, and now you're welded to your seat with just, popcorn fused to your hand.
Kris, one of your favorite movies is the, what year did that Godzilla movie come out that when we were kids and, impressionable about these things? Our Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla.
I'm pretty sure it was 99 because they had an ad campaign that was in a rivalry with episode 1.
So what the tagline was, size does matter, right?
Right.
And you're saying that size doesn't matter.
Well, that's what I just mentioned. Do you know what the rebuttal to the Godzilla ad campaign was from Lucasfilm?
What?
Plot matters. Plot does matter. So we're very on topic right now. But
yeah. All right. Let's go. Titanic. Here we go.
Seeing her coming out of the darkness like a ghost ship still gets me every time.
Take a look at this drawing that we found just today. A piece of paper that's been underwater for 85 years.
I'll be damned.
All right, you have my attention. Can you tell us who the woman in the picture is?
Oh, yes. The woman in the picture is me.
Are you ready to go back to Titanic?
Of all the films we've covered and will cover on this podcast, 1997's Titanic might be the most best picture of them all. It's a big, epic story that blends multiple genres, features massive movie stars, groundbreaking visuals, and most important of all, a troubled production that went over time, over budget, threatened to bankrupt studios and end careers, only for a man with a vision to triumph in the end and release the highest grossing film of all time. That is, until that man with a vision beat his own record a decade later with a big, epic story that blended genres, featured massive movie stars, groundbreaking visuals, etc., etc. Writer, director, producer James Cameron was far from the first filmmaker to make a movie centered on the titular British ocean liner. In 1912, 29 days after the actual event, a silent film lost to time titled Saved from the Titanic was released, featuring an actual survivor of the tragedy.
Jeez.
A German production with an evocative title that translates to In Night and Ice came later that year. Hollywood released the Barbara Stanwyck starring Titanic in 1953, which won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, while the Brits told the story again in A Night to Remember in 1958. Of all the films mentioned, that one is praised for its historical accuracy and is preferred amongst Titanic fanatics. But if you're like me, whose knowledge of the actual event is so basic that I had to be reminded it was a ship departing England and coming to America and not the other way around, then you've probably never seen or heard of any of these. What you know is Jack, Rose, Billy Zane, Draw Me Like One of Your French Girls, and of course, I'm King of the World.
take a journey back in time in search of a mystery locked beneath the sea. This December, you will be given the key.
Whoa! I'm the king of the world!
Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet.
Iceberg, right ahead!
In a James Cameron film.
And that speaks to how beloved this movie is, or if not beloved, inescapable. But the story of this historical romance disaster epic is a pretty simple one. A present-day search for a priceless necklace rumored to have gone down with the ship called the Heart of the Ocean prompts a 101-year-old Titanic survivor, played by Hollywood legend Gloria Stewart, to come forward and tell her story. In 1912, Rose DeWitt Buttaker, now played by Kate Winslet, boards the luxury ocean liner in first class with her loaded fiancé, Cal Hockley, the aforementioned Billy Zane. If Rose marries Cal as planned, she'll never want for anything, except for what she really wants, which is a fulfilling life traveling the world with someone who appreciates things other than money and keeping up appearances. But as they push off for America, she feels her fate being sealed, and her only escape is to jump overboard until she's stopped by a chipper lad from Chippewa Falls, citizen of the world artist Jack Dawson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. One thing leads to another, and they fall in love in a series of iconic moments that are all supercharged with charm and tension, including a below-decks dance party, a nude pencil sketching session, and a steamy backseat hookup in the ship's hull.
Are you nervous?
Put your hands on me, Jack.
Cal the cuckold exacts revenge on Jack by framing him for the theft of the Heart of the Ocean diamond, slaps Rose around, and just when things couldn't get any worse, the boat hits an iceberg. It's revealed there's barely enough lifeboats for half the people aboard, and as word spreads that this is not a drill, the ship falls into chaos. When Rose learns that Cal has chained Jack up to go down with the ship, she chooses to run back into the sinking vessel to save her love. One thing leads to another, and they fight for survival in a series of iconic moments supercharged with adrenaline and danger, including navigating rising water levels, locked-off passages, and dangling from the bow of the ship as it's sucked into the depths below.
Do not let go of my hand! Rose, trust me. I trust you.
Jack sacrifices himself to let Rose stay high and dry aboard an annoyingly controversial door. File this next to The Rat and The Departed. I don't want to talk about it. He gives in to fate, but not before he makes her promise to live with the kind of life she wants, one comparable to the epic adventure they've shared in their brief time together. After Rose finishes her story in the present, we learn that she made good on her promise to Jack and lived a full, exciting life, and that she's had the Heart of the Ocean necklace this whole time. She says goodbye to Jack one last time and drops it overboard to be reunited with her true love. And like its simple plot, the film's origin story is quite straightforward. James Cameron is an accomplished diver, and he wanted a reason to go 2,000 feet below sea level off the coast of Newfoundland and film the wreck. As he gathered footage, he began to craft his script and gather interest around Hollywood, pitching it as a Romeo and Juliet story set against one of the greatest disasters of the modern world.
The heart wrench of literally hundreds and hundreds of women separated from their husbands, having to get into lifeboats, see them on the deck for the last time as they're being lowered away into the darkness. I think that's one of the enduring images of the real Titanic story. And so, I thought if I make that as the backdrop to a love story, albeit a fictional love story, how much more of a turbocharged experience of sort of passion and heartbreak that might be. I mean, that was my initial sort of gut feeling that drew me to the arena of Titanic, of doing a love story on the Titanic.
From the get-go, it was clear this would not be a cheap film to make. Cameron wanted to recreate the experience of that fateful night as authentically as possible and insisted on rebuilding the entire ship from its original plans. From here, talking about the production of the movie will sound like a list of fun facts, so here's a few faves. The nude sketch of Kate Winslet was drawn by James Cameron himself. During the filming of the present-day scenes, someone laced the set food with PCP and sent dozens of people to the hospital, including Cameron and Bill Paxton, thankfully not the 87-year-old Gloria Stewart.
Oh, yikes.
Cameron didn't want any pop songs in the film, but Studio 20th Century Fox did, and it was composer James Horner and lyricist Will Jennings who had the idea to add words to the film's main love theme, creating the Celine Dion hit, My Heart Will Go On. When the production budget ballooned from $100 million to $200 million and counting, 20th Century Fox turned to Paramount Pictures for some extra scratch. Paramount ponied up another $65 million and also locked in future domestic box office. And when that still wasn't enough, Cameron gave back his $8 million writing and directing fee in exchange for points on the film's profits, which at the time looked like it wouldn't be much, so Fox happily agreed. Until the film pulls $650 million in America alone, and then an additional $1.5 billion worldwide. That's not counting the double VHS home video edition, and later the special edition DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K discs, the 3D re-release in theaters, and of course the cable TV cut with commercial breaks stretching the 3-hour runtime to like 6.
Wow.
Now all those trips down to the bottom of the ocean to look at some rusty metal don't seem so expensive, huh? Anyway, how do I feel about this movie? It's good. I guess I don't love it the way many people do, and I found the present-day scenes with treasure hunter Bill Paxton and his crew of nerdy man-children unintentionally hilarious. But the movie is wonderful to look at. I love all the performances, especially Kathy Bates as the unsinkable Molly Brown and Victor Garber as the ship's architect. As for the centerpiece romance, it's fine. It's better than Out of Africa's, that's for sure. Leo is charming, Kate is, as always, a wonder. What struck me most this viewing is how hardcore the movie gets when the boat is finally going down. Many people die very painful deaths in the freezing waters, their bodies shutting down and turning pale and lifeless. I tip my cap most to Cameron for not pulling punches here. This is a human tragedy, not just something for history buffs to obsess over and intellectually dissect. In fact, I would argue that the main character of this film is Bill Paxton's treasure hunter, an obvious stand-in for Cameron himself. He goes on a journey from being obsessed with the wrecked ship to becoming obsessed with the people aboard it. Jack and Rose weren't real people, but for a brief 3 hours and 15 minutes, their love is.
Aww.
We put a lot of work and a lot of time and energy into the ship sinking, which you'd expect. And I'm certainly very, very proud of the love story and the chemistry between Jack and Rose. But there's one moment in the film that I personally, just for me, just for Jim, like, and that's when Leonardo's looking at the dolphins, and there's such optimism in that moment, and the ship is so beautiful, and you see it sort of brought back to life. You know, there's something about having been to the shipwreck and seen it wrecked at the bottom of the ocean, that to be able to, as a filmmaker, make it live again, that is one of the things that, just for me, just for my part of it, is fun. I think other people enjoy other things about the movie more, but we all have to get something out of it.
Kris, what'd you think of James Cameron's Titanic?
Boy, I don't know about you, but I've seen this movie so many times. And even though it doesn't really seem like James Cameron has a dedicated fan base like other filmmakers do, I do consider myself a James Cameron fan. But what does that say about me? That I like things that are long and that manipulate you with music and with CGI? I'm not sure. Titanic is great. It was an important movie. In 1997, all the girls in my elementary school loved Titanic and all the boys did not. And so, we split a ruled piece of paper down the middle to make a list for the Titanic haters and the Titanic lovers. And I'm still a member of that club. We still have meetings every Thursday night.
Okay, shut up. All right, so let's see. Of all those girls in elementary school, how many of them do you think remember the framing device of this movie? I am always surprised, to see Bill Paxton and realize it takes 20 minutes, a solid 20 minutes, before we actually flash back to 1912 and get the stuff that everyone remembers going.
If this movie were a little bit more mid, I would say no one remembers the framing device. But there's something about, this captured the hearts of young people in 1997. And this is the kind of movie that people went to over and over and over again.
Yes.
You see local news stations film regular people. You can find these on YouTube and they're all hysterical. And you'll find some some woman who's just, a housewife. And she's like, I have seen this 20 times and it changed my life.
James Cameron talks a lot about, hindsight is 20/20, but he's in every interview so certain that this was going to be a hit because he knew that the story was going to excite that many people and that there would be so much word of mouth around it that there would be those multiple viewings that you're talking about. And I guess if you are just one of those average moviegoers who is only going to see maybe 1 or 2 movies a year, you want it to be the big disaster epic, or just, the one that has the most scope, besides The Postman, of course, but we'll get to that later.
I was just in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and there is a Titanic attraction there. There are many Titanic attractions, and I don't think they would exist.
What is a Titanic attraction?
I don't know. You go in the boat, you see a bunch of stuff. I don't think they have a lot of actual stuff from the boat, like it's a lot of replicas.
What does Pigeon Forge, Tennessee have to do with the Titanic?
It's just a tourist attraction town. It's
okay.
it's like how Niagara Falls has monster wax museums.
Right, but monsters aren't real. The Titanic happened. It's an odd, I'm not blaming you unless this is something that you set up and are trying to get going in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I'm just curious if there is some sort of connection.
I'm taking major motion problems on the road, and we're driving to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, where I'll go up to the counter and be like, look, I told my friend this exists. He got upset, and he used that tone with me. You know that tone? So why don't you explain why there's a Titanic attraction in Pigeon? And the person will say, is this an adult and a child? And I said, yeah, 1 adult, 1 child. That's the child. Gosh darn it, James.
Okay, all right, back on track. Have you ever been on a cruise?
No, have you?
No, I haven't.
After this movie, will you go on a cruise?
No, I'm good. My wife Isabel had a interesting observation to make, because she watched the movie with me. She always turns up for Titanic. It's a 2-quadrant movie.
That's funny.
It's good, right? Now for those listeners who are not Hollywood insiders, the way Kris and I are, the term 4-quadrant movie, God, I can't even name what the 4 quadrants are, but it refers to a film that appeals to everyone, like adults, children, teenagers, and whatever that mid-ground is, or families, I guess. I don't know, but
elderly.
The elderly,
know.
but the good example of a 4-quadrant movie is like Pirates of the Caribbean, and you remember how like everyone went and saw that. Even though it was PG-13, you would still bring kids to that because it was just like a very intense PG movie. This movie is a little bit more, as much as I like that, the first Pirates anyway, this is a little bit more artistically driven, but Isabel's joke about it being a 2-quadrant movie is it's for dads and it's for moms. And the moms, they turn up for Kate and Leo and the love story, which is very engrossing and romantic and charming. The dads turn up for every scene either begins or ends with some sort of like fact or, bit of history about the actual Titanic. So you do get the wonderful experience of having a History Channel documentary on. At the same time, you have this kind of, soapy melodrama playing against it.
Yeah, you could, if you were in the audience in 1997, when the architect was saying like, it can flood over 5 compartments, but not 6. All the dads in the audience turned to each other like, oh yeah, that was actually, I was engineered.
True. That's actually true. That's completely true. Like the first moment for me that I liked, just in terms of like using history in a somewhat subtle way, but then making it part of the actual story. When you're getting the first shot of them in Southampton and you're seeing everyone being checked for lice,
right?
Before they go on board, and they're specifically checking the beard lice. And then when Jack wins his ticket on the ship, in a poker game, and he runs and he jumps aboard, they ask, have you gone through like the safety checks and everything, check for lice? And like, so, if you didn't understand what was happening before, you now, see it as like a brief obstacle for Jack to overcome. So it's just very authentic. It's very effortless storytelling. Like it never really feels like we're getting like, okay, we have to stop the movie for a little bit to talk about just like how the ship, was built, or like what the specific different features of it are. And this movie really does a good job of like, we all know where this is going to go. So how do you build suspense for something that is inevitable? And like when Victor Garber gives that tour of the boat to Billy Zane and Kate Winslet, and they're talking about the lifeboats and how there aren't actually enough of them, and how he wanted them, to be there, but the owner of the ship or whoever, said that it looked bad, and so that's why there's only enough for less than half the people there. It's exposition, and it like just makes you have this sinking like feeling in your stomach, but it also doesn't feel like a stop down. It feels like, okay, this is a somewhat natural conversation to be having right now. I mean, within reason. I think that just speaks to the tone of the movie, in that we both have to explain exactly what went down and like all the little bits of human failure, how they added up to this giant disaster.
Yeah, you're right. You know what's funny? I never see interviews with James Cameron where he talks about just being a screenwriter, because didn't he write Alita: Battle Angel as well?
Yeah, with Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, pretty sure.
That is also a movie that needs a ton of exposition to get going, and because it's like this futuristic world, there's all these rules and factions and whatnot, but he does it pretty smoothly, I thought. But it's funny, he is such a talented writer, but you never hear him just talk about like how to like, embed exposition or like write things like you see other screenwriters when they talk about their work in public. He's just kind of like, he's so smart that he's just like beyond it. Like, yeah, of course you embed exposition and little pieces of action that reveal character as you go along. Like, well, of course it's how you...
I think that speaks from just his confidence as the head of department across everything. He is the director, he is the writer, he is the producer. So he knows, or at least wants to come up with the plan for exactly everything he needs. And if that errs on the side of being too clear, well, I mean, I think it's that clarity that made people see this movie over and over again, and why it's still beloved to this day.
Right. I don't know which version you watch, but many people have watched it. But recently, he just came out with a new cut. You mentioned the lice and the lice chuck. Did you see the version of this movie where Leo actually brings lice onto the ship? And so there's actually like a good 40 minutes of subplot where wait, is that an iceberg? Hold on, I'm itching my head. 1 sec, I missed that. What did you say? I said an iceberg. And even Rose is like, I love you, but I gotta. Do you have any
dirty? All right. Well, you've segued us into the romance at the center of this, because honestly, it's probably only the main thing to talk about in this movie, if you're going to focus on story dissection, is this relationship and this romance. And it starts off on a dark note. Rose is going to jump overboard because she feels like she has no purpose in life and that she can't escape this life that she's sailing towards. She's saved by Jack. And then from there, they fall head over heels for each other right away. And it's just fun to watch. It's very charming, and you get it. And you definitely like Jack a lot more than Billy Zane and any of the other people in First Class that he has dinner with. There's a moment between Jack and Cal where Cal says, "A real man makes his own luck." And I was like, oh, that's kind of like the viewpoint, sort of Jack. It was like an interesting moment of common ground between the two, but it's not played that way. The movie never goes into gray areas about is Kate Winslet torn between these two men? No, absolutely not. I was just sort of interested on your opinion. There's another version of this movie where after, I think, having Jack save Rose to start the story is great because it's an exciting way to force two people into a relationship. Is there a version of this story though where after that happens, Rose, is kind of plus minus on Jack. Maybe he's, besides being just such a smart citizen of the world, artist, adventurer, living by the seat of his pants, what about him is actually kind of gross and turns her off? I mean, how many people like Jack has she met in her life? And, that whole foreign experience of getting to know someone who is not from the same world that you are, which can be off-putting at first, but then perhaps lead to a deeper connection. Do you see a version of that story working, or do you think just because the real focus of the film is the sinking of the ship, do you feel like there's any room for a slightly more layered or less straight line of a plot?
So if we were in James Cameron's famous Avatar writing room where he's planning out all 5 of his movies or whatever, and I was James Cameron and you just said that whole thing to me, shouldn't we put nuance or something of more substance in this relationship? If I were James Cameron, I would just stare at you and be like, dude, Cal is a cheater. That's why he said, I make my own luck. He's a bad guy. Do you get that? Get on my... Are you serious?
Oh, the names he would call me. We should note at this time that James Cameron, at this time, and I'm guessing still to this day, has a short fuse, and it can be unpleasant to be around on set. And I don't know, everyone just kind of like talks about it and kind of laughs like, yeah, he's scary. I don't know. I guess when you've got this much on the line riding, this much riding on the line at all times, you might be that way. But
there's something about the story style in this movie that perfectly aligns with James Cameron and his personality and his directing style. In the story, in the relationship, in the romance, it's like there is a fire there, but the main thing that keeps the fire going is obstacles in situations, like you said. The failed jump attempt is like, well, she pretty much has to consider this guy now that, her life has been saved by him. And, every little, it's not that she's being drawn toward Leo, it's also that she's being pushed away from Cal too. Like, there's all these perfectly engineered little moments and elements that are just pushing them together. And it seems like if James Cameron would have screwed it up, all of that machinery would just be exhausting, but he's so delicate. And it's the same thing with his directing style and just his being as a filmmaker, that if these films weren't huge and they didn't take in a bunch of money, I think we'd all see him in a little bit different light. I'm sure maybe he'll never admit it. He'll never say it in an interview, but deep down, he's probably thinking like, if I don't pull this off with Avatar 3, and I do this giant thing with this complicated story that's so expensive and all these people are relying on me, then like I might not be able to do it again. So it just seems like he's well aware that like there is a tremendous amount of risk involved. So going back to your point about why isn't Rose going back and forth, and why couldn't you make the relationship and the story a little more complicated and subtle? It's like, no. Popcorn in mouth, Slurpee in mouth. Like, James Cameron knows that, even though he's super smart. This movie's solid. It's like sitting down to watch it, I just give a big sigh because it's like, sure, I'll watch Titanic again, but it's like...
You're locked in. You know that it's like, okay, well, I know that this is going to engross me with every frame. So, you know it is a bit of a turnoff, though, that might... Again, and this is why I ask about the framing device. The one guy who works for Bill Paxton, who, like, it's hinted doesn't believe Gloria Stewart.
Is that the guy who's kind of the obnoxious nerd
the
with the glasses?
The obnoxious nerd with the glasses who is piloting the submersible drone in the beginning. And there's some bad joke where he mixes up the words anesthesia with Anastasia. Like... It's a weird joke that I think only James Cameron laughed at, but again, everyone's too scared to tell him that's not funny. And then like he shows Gloria Stewart like at the time, cutting edge computer graphic video of like their theory of how the boat split in two and went down, which I guess that's not a confirmed thing to have happened, but that they think that like it chopped in two and then sank in two different parts. And so he's like shoving it in her face like, yeah, you mean to tell me that this didn't happen? It's like, no one's saying that didn't happen.
Yep. I want to make 2 points about that guy really quick. I despise the way his exposition is written.
Yes.
Like when it cuts back to him like in the middle of the movie, it's like, all right, we're only up to 6 p.m. the night of the ship sank. So what then? What happened next? It's like, oh, geez, dude. And my second point is, we've seen this character in a few James Cameron movies already. The closest comparison I can think is in Avatar 2, The Way of Water. There's like the nerd who works with the boat crew that's taking down the space whales.
Yeah.
I think he's played by the Flight of the Conchords guy. Mark Maron was originally supposed to play that role. Yeah, we've seen this character many times. I mean... Giovanni Ribisi is kind of like that in Avatar. I'm trying to think if there are any characters in Aliens.
But those two, well, I guess maybe not Jermaine Clement's character, but Ribisi, he's a bad guy at the end of the day, so it's okay for that. This is ultimately this guy comes around.
It seems like James Cameron, as brilliant as he is, you know, he does the thing where action comedies seem to have a really low bar for comedy in the 90s at least. Then it seemed like in the 2010s with Marvel, everything got heightened, but now we're in like this phase where like everything is, he's standing right behind me, isn't he? Well, then what's your plan C? You know, everything requires a punch-up joke written in. But it seems like action comedies in the 90s just had a really low bar for comedy. There's a lot of attempts at comedy in this, like, you know, the one of the early mealtime scenes where, you know, Rose says something implies that one of the male's genitalia is small at the table. Then the scene ends.
That's funny. That's actually funny. Come on. I mean, it's at least more charming than, you know, the present day stuff.
I think this is the first hard disagree of the episode. It hasn't happened this late before.
With Molly Brown, with Kathy Bates at the table. Remember, it's all good. It's to set up Kate Winslet as the outsider in this world.
Can I say something? Kathy Bates is my favorite actor in this movie.
I know, yes.
She's like, everything she says is like very corny, but she understands the assignment. And also there's a musical called The Unsinkable Molly Brown.
I was going to ask about that. Can you give our listeners at home just the 101 on The Unsinkable Molly Brown musical?
Pretty sure it's Meredith Willson who wrote it. I think it has a lot of problems because it's not revived very much. But it's a great idea for a show. You know, it's due for a rewrite and a revival. So that's what I'll say.
Let's talk about it because, like, her legend is that, like, she's the one that tried to make her lifeboat turn back and, like, save more people. But she didn't, though, and I am not blaming the spirit of Molly Brown. By the way, obviously there's less courageous people in charge, and the very fact that she was thinking of others is something to be admired. But this is where the film, and I mentioned this in the intro, it gets hardcore. I mean, it is like there are people who drown. There are people who are crushed by things. There are people who have to make impossible choices of whether they give their child away in hopes that they survive, even though they know that they won't. There's so many just like horrible situations that Cameron does not back away from, and they're not like exciting to watch. You know, it all very much is just the feeling of like gripping your seat. And I guess I haven't seen that many disaster movies, like the classic era of the Towering Inferno and Earthquake, like those types of movies. But I have to guess that like there is sort of a feeling of that there. Except those movies are about fictional events generally. So they can create these sort of like, they can create these heightened situations, these extraordinary situations where like your survival instincts are tested, and you can be happy in the end when The Rock is like reunited with his daughter, you know, in San Andreas or whatever. But here, like, this is where all the historical setup goes really well, is like, God, you just you cannot believe all the bad decisions, every like big decisions and little decisions that went into this happening. And it was completely avoidable. And the fact that so many people lost their lives in such a horrifying, like painful way is just like you can't help but be moved by it. And I haven't seen any of the other films I listed earlier. I do want to see A Night to Remember because, from what I understand, James Cameron actually borrowed a couple of scenes from that movie because he liked it so much, and because there's historical precedent as well. But I have to imagine, just from the period and era it was made, like, Cameron was able to pretty, like, use technology and use modern movie-making techniques to really get at the horror of, like, what this looks like. And it's not pretty to look at. Were you moved, Kris, by this?
Yes, I'll say it 1,000 times. James Cameron is a director with a big brain, and he knows how to, as we say on this podcast, zoom out and get the epic spectacle, right? The ship breaking in half, the people rowing away. But also, I've heard him in interviews talking about one scene in particular where they filled up the dining room with water as it was flooding. And I think he even expresses surprise in the clip that they could hear the gentle like clinking of the plates and everything starting to float as the water came up. And that's kind of, you know, a worse director, a bad director would, you know, show the plates, I have a dining room full of plates. Big wave comes in, crashes them all, comes right at the camera. And then we'll convert it into 3D and the audience go, ah! But James Cameron decides, he picks and chooses, like, this was a real moment. I can get a real evocative moment out of this. And it works. It works so well. And of course he does have, a guy, hitting the propeller as he falls off the back of the ship and spinning. He also has the cool Michael Bay stuff. Mm-hmm. But he has subtle moments. Like, I love, it's so corny, and it was, everyone at the time talked about it. I think it was parodied like 1,000 times and everything. The small orchestra, the quartet or whatever, playing the music as the boat sank. What does he say? Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure playing with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone said that when I was a kid. That was like a meme. It was a meme before a meme.
To that point specifically, one thing I picked up on this time is, you have the American crew and you have the British crew. And like when the disaster hits, when it's like they realize the ship is going to sink in less than 2 hours, we will be at the bottom of the ocean. The British, they keep calm and carry on. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's just like, okay, we all know what we're supposed to do in this, which is lead everyone to the lifeboats. The Americans are too shell-shocked to respond. Like they need like that steady guiding hand to like kick them into action. It reminds me of in Dunkirk, the Christopher Nolan movie, when Kenneth Branagh, he's also overseeing the evacuation of the beach, and he just stands on the beach the whole time, like waiting for the enemy to come bomb him. And when the planes show up, he just sort of turns his cheek and like gets ready to like, take it. And then I think it's Tom Hardy is in the plane that like comes in and shoots down the other plane and saves them. So it's a great moment. And, we love our British. We love our Brits. If there's any British listeners, thank you so much for everything you do for us hot-headed Americans who make movies like The Postman.
Oi, the Titanic, isn't it? It's great because James Cameron could have resisted taking such a wide spectrum with like where the characters are as they panic. He does seem to go through like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance with like all the characters, like the old couple that's in bed, like you said, the Americans are panicking and like conniving. What does Billy Zane do? He's, he steals a child and he says like, I have a kid.
Yeah, okay. I cannot believe I'm saying this. So in defense of that moment, yes, he's using a child to cut the line, but hey, at least that kid got on the lifeboat.
Okay, I'm not second hard disagree of the episode.
I don't actually mean that, but I was thinking about it. It's like that lady was very far back in line. There's no way she would have made it on the lifeboat.
I just watched Titanic. James Cameron? No, James Madejski. It's great. The ending is Billy Zane you don't really like Billy Zane, but he gets away in the boat with a little boy, and the little boy, you feel happy for him. A lot of people die, but you feel happy for Billy Zane, mostly for the boy.
I regret saying it already. I do like how his last moment where it goes to Rose wearing the coat, and Billy Zane is creeping around like looking for her to see if she survived, and it's like if you had forgotten that the necklace was in that coat pocket, you might be like. There's just this sense of like you're instantly like reminded like, oh shit, he's still after the necklace. Like it's so clear that he's not looking for her to like apologize or maybe try to pick up, things and do better. No, he is truly just looking for that diamond necklace.
Yeah, you're right. I'd like to see how James Cameron writes. Like you've seen some of his treatments before where it's just like pages and pages of like block text and it's like, wow, he really just thought all of this, like it almost seems like at once. I wonder because like if I were writing little moments like that, that's like a draft 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Because when you're at the end of a screenplay and you're just like trying to get to the end, it's like Rose survived. Let's just get out. But it's like, no, I can put this in little moment. He's still after the necklace. Remind the audience they still the wrong guy.
It is interesting to think about ideas like when did this idea come in the process? Because it feels like that is such a perfect, inevitable ending for that character. outside of dying with the ship. But this is so much more satisfying because it just shows that it's like not even the greatest tragedy that the modern world had ever seen would change the way that he thinks. And it's done without dialogue. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, Chris. It's when was he always designed to end in that place, or is that something that James Cameron found along the way? I'm not sure. Either way, he pulls it off brilliantly.
If James Cameron if he ever talked too much about his process of like creating a story, I think he would be afraid of like pulling the curtain on his magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he seems very old school in a way where he's just like, I want to protect the stuff that I have, even though he's very involved with showing people his mocap and his giant water tanks, blue screens and whatnot. But it seems like story is very sacred to him. And maybe his first drafts aren't that great. Maybe they are. We'll never know. We'll never know.
All that matters is the finished product.
Yeah.
To close our conversation about Titanic, do you know any Titanic fanatics in your life? Like, it feels like this is the two-quadrant dad side. The History Channel buffs who really, really want to get down into the details and minutia. Do you know any people like that about the Titanic specifically?
No, not since 1997. Not since I was a kid.
Well, I'm not sure if you're aware, but our friend, Bob Dylan, voice of a generation, singer-songwriter, on his 2012 album Tempest, released a song called Tempest, it's the title track, which outlines in great detail, in a similar sort of way of the movie, the sinking of the Titanic, and also includes references to James Cameron's film as well. And we're going to go to the next section, but I just want everyone at home to know that I'm now going to make Kris listen to this song.
What? This is crazy.
It's good stuff. So Bob Dylan, if you remember at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, he released his Rough and Rowdy Ways album, which featured a song called Murder Most Foul, which was about the JFK assassination. And all you normies out there who haven't been down with Bob the way that I am, were like, oh my God, this long song, it's just a list of facts about something that happened in history. Not new for me. I had already lived through Tempest. So if Bob Dylan was going to rewrite Tempest today, do you think he would include any lyrics about the Ocean Gate disaster? I'm
not familiar with Bob Dylan at all. I don't know what compels him to write or what his style is, even though I've listened to a lot of his music. I don't know. I don't have a cohesive idea of what his take on Ocean Gate would be. Submarine, underwater, I don't know. Imploding near the crabs. I don't know. What would it be?
I love how you think that he still sounds like that, too.
See? There you go. What do you want me to say? That you're the classic rock expert? You're the classic rock expert. What would you think?
Good segue, because the next film features a surprising supporting turn from none other than Tom Petty.
Yeah, the mayor of Bridgetown. Oh, boy.
Titanic. In the future, after the Great War, our civilization lies in ruin. Government does not exist. Technology has been erased. And everything man remembers is gone. Out of the chaos, a lawless army will arise to prey on the few survivors. But to a people who have lost their hope.
You are a dangerous man. I can see it in your eyes.
He will give them courage.
I have a feeling about you.
He will restore their memories of the past.
It's the individual that counts.
These people don't need dreams. They need help. Are you going to bring them that?
James, when I was growing up, Sundays for my dad were all about four things: yard work, shelled, salted peanuts, ice-cold Coke, and whatever commercially extended movie was playing all afternoon on basic cable. For some reason, the same three movies always seemed to be in regular rotation: The Birdcage, Meet Joe Black, and Kevin Costner's 1997 post-apocalyptic megaflop, The Postman.
Kevin Costner, Academy Award-winning director of Dances with Wolves. brings you an epic new vision of our future.
There are gonna be new laws. There's gonna be peace.
Out of all the movies that played on those Sunday afternoons, my dad usually had the most opinions about The Postman, and delivered a running commentary while standing, arms crossed, vowing that he'd get the ladder to do the gutters after the next commercial break. Kris, doesn't that look like the guy from Armageddon? Pretty sure it's the guy from Armageddon. Gosh, I don't know where they shot this, but it sure looks expensive. Wait, this movie is still going? It hasn't ended yet? Come on, Kris, it's time for dinner. If The Birdcage taught me about love and acceptance, and Meet Joe Black taught me about the fleeting nature of life, then The Postman taught me, I don't know, I guess, that America is really great and that we shouldn't take it for granted in case there's an apocalyptic war. Something like that. But when my dad would watch a full half hour of The Postman while standing 6 feet away from the TV while repeating, "This movie is terrible and way too long," deep in my heart, I knew what he meant. Kevin Costner is a man who is obsessed with himself.
You know, it's important, you know, to see the vanity of Will Patton, you know. Yeah, you got the joke, but a lot of people maybe would cut right after where he says, you know, a military man should keep a journal. It's the only way to stop the slander. You realize the height of his vanity and how he's thinking about his future. That doesn't drive the movie, but it lets you know the psychotic, the vanity, the everything that exists with him that makes him a great character in film.
Well, Kevin Costner's best director is Kevin Costner.
Right off the bat, I have to say, it is so crazy that Kevin Costner decided to make another post-apocalyptic adventure movie after the huge failure of Waterworld in 1995. As a kid, I had seen my fair share of Waterworld pinball machines in public places, and even my young mind couldn't comprehend why this guy kept starring in massively ambitious epics set after the end of the world, especially considering that all the adults in my life would constantly make fun of them. Who the heck are these movies for? People on Sunday afternoons doing work around the house who aren't really paying attention anyway? Although I didn't know it back then, most of the major newspapers and Hollywood trade shared my opinion about The Postman, including the Los Angeles Times. Critic Kenneth Turan wrote in his LA Times review, "Can anyone rise to the challenge of speaking out for what's good and decent? To the strains of 'Deliver the letter, the sooner the better, a hero does arise.' Believe it or not, it's The Postman. The first film to be directed by and star Kevin Costner since Dances with Wolves won 7 Oscars, The Postman sounds like it's going to be Dirt World, a landlocked version of Costner's most notorious film, the much derided but finally adequate Waterworld." According to IMDb trivia, even people working on the film referred to the movie as Dirt World, and it didn't take long for pop culture to hop onto the anti-Postman dogpile. Get it? Postman? Dog? Here's a clip from The Simpsons.
Ooh, I hear this really sucks. Director's commentary.
I'm sorry. I am really sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. But Field of Dreams was good, wasn't it? Made us all believe again.
Oh, poor Mr. Costner. He tries so hard.
The Postman definitely has the same wide-eyed American optimism as Phil Alden Robinson's Field of Dreams from 1989. But with Kevin Costner now both starring and directing, audiences and critics across the board agreed that it was just too long and too indulgent. David Brin, the award-winning science fiction author who wrote the original novel, has a fantastic blog post on his personal website all about how Costner took on The Postman after his hit romantic golf comedy Tin Cup in 1996. Brin writes, "It's a story about how much we take for granted and how desperately we would miss the little gracious things that connect us today. It is a story about the last idealist in a fallen America, a man who cannot let go of a dream we all once shared, who sparks restored faith that we can recover and perhaps even become better than we were. It would take a special kind of actor to play the lead role, a ragged survivor, deeply scarred, yet still willing to hope. In this era of cynicism, we need reminders of the decency that lies within. That sense of strength, openness, and hope was what we felt after watching Field of Dreams. The Postman is a very different story, yet it aims to deliver the same message to the heart. We are in this together."
I'm the head of the clan now! There are gonna be new laws! Law 1! There's gonna be peace!
Thankfully, Costner left the writing of The Postman to Oscar-winning screenwriter and major motion pal Eric Roth, and LA Confidential screenwriter Brian Helgeland. Just from the exhausting 3-hour runtime, you'd think that Roth and Helgeland included just about everything from the novel into the movie. But actually, David Brin's original novel included an AI computer that, spoiler alert, was actually just a facade to keep up hope for a community of survivors. Helgeland and Roth even removed much of the backstory about how society broke down after the end of the world. And still, it needs to be emphasized, The Postman is a very long movie. How long? Apparently Sunday afternoon when you're not really paying attention long.
I will say, first question somebody had me to ask you today said, why does he make such long movies? And I told them, I said, my favorite movies of all time are long ones. Great Escape. I mean, so many, The Longest Day.
I don't think this movie is long. I think this movie is very complete. You know, it's not missing things. You know, and a lot of movies just rush to judgment, rush to that big bang ending. You know, just and let's make a sequel of it as quick as we can. You know, let's do the quick joke or whatever. This movie's not long that way. This movie's really satisfying, and it's like, and it's not the only kind of movie. That's too narrow to judge. And that person also, if they would think that way, then all of a sudden movies are all going to start to look and smell the same. They're all going to be a certain length. You know, forget about it. Some things take more time. You know.
Now, if you haven't seen The Postman, I don't want to bore you too much by explaining the many details in its drawn-out yet simple story. It's basically The Music Man meets the American brother of Mad Max, with Kevin Costner pretending to be a mailman instead of a music professor. In the book, the postman's name is Gordon Krantz, but in the movie, the postman's name is just The Postman, mostly for corny, thematic reasons, so I'll just call the main character of this movie Kevin Costner. It is the far-off year of 2013, and Kevin Costner is playing an actor, and not just any actor, but a Shakespearean actor who travels the war-torn landscape of the apocalyptic future.
They said, fear not, Macbeth, till Birnam Wood comes to Dunsany. I said, till Birnam Wood comes to Dunsany. Thank you.
In the scene you just listened to, Kevin Costner does a cute little scene with his mule in front of some scrappy villagers. Despite the world being in shambles, he seems to make the best of it as a nomad, using his performing skills and wit to earn meals and survive. However, Mr. Costner's traveling act soon comes to a crashing end when he is kidnapped and conscripted into a militia group called the Holnists, an oppressive regime led by the ruthless king of the aquatic wasteland, the Deacon, played by Dennis Hopper. Wait, no. What year is it in this one?
Oh, ho,
2013. Okay. Oh no. Oh, okay. So in this one, the army of the Beyond Thunderdome extras is led by General Bethlehem, the ruthless king of the Northwestern Wasteland. Sorry, my bad.
Welcome, gentlemen, to your new life. You have been born again as soldiers in the United Army of Nathan Holt. God rest his soul. The strong have been sapped by the whimpering propaganda of the weak.
Bethlehem is played by Will Patton, aka the guy from Armageddon, and many other movies you may recognize him from. I'm pretty sure this is the biggest role I've ever seen Will Patton play, and while he does fit the character well, the character is not only designed to be ridiculously unlikable, but he's also just as corny as the optimistic parts of the movie. Between being singled out by Bethlehem and the brutal compulsory training, Kevin Costner makes the decision to escape the Holnist prison camp. On the run and without his beloved mule, he manages to survive by taking refuge in an abandoned mail jeep. Even though it's not explicitly said out loud, Mr. Costner gets the idea to use the postman's uniform, mail, and borrowed backstory to continue surviving. He takes his plan to the walled settlement of Pineview, one of the many small towns living under the threat of General Bethlehem and the Holnists. Putting some of his acting skills to work, the Oscar-winning director and star of Dances with Wolves tells a lie to the citizens of Pineview, informing them that the United States government not only survived the apocalypse, but there are plans in motion to restore the country and take down the Holnists.
You're a godsend. A savior.
No, I'm just the postman.
James, did you catch the Beatles Easter egg when Kevin Costner talks about the President of the United States?
Did I ever?
Did you really? Can you prove it? Tell it to me.
He says the president is Richard Starkey and things are getting better all the time.
Yep.
Wait, do you think that's like a subtle reference that only certain people would get?
James, I'm not the classic rock expert. This was news to me.
No, there's nothing more American than the Beatles. Continue.
Well, for people like me who didn't know, Richard Starkey is the real name of the drummer of the Beatles, Ringo Starr. And if we all were just a little more kind to each other and didn't criticize each other when we didn't know Beatles facts, that's also written in my intro.
I was so with you this entire time. Now I'm wondering if you understood the Postman.
Oh boy. Now, at this point in the story, here's where the Music Man element of the movie kicked in for me. And at the risk of recording something just to cut it, I honestly think The Postman would work really well as a stage musical. Because either you're closing your eye to an apocalypse you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are not aware of the caliber of disaster indicated by the presence of wholeness in your community. Whoa, you got mail now. Right here in Pineview City. That's Pineview with a P, just like the letter P that's in my name. That's Postman. Okay, real quick. And at the end of Act 1 in my hypothetical Postman musical, it'll be a big production number with everyone in town getting mail from people who died in the apocalypse. So, oh, the Kevin Costner Postman is coming down the street. Oh, please let it be for me. Oh, the fake imposter Postman is coming down the street with letters from the year 2003. I got the last newspaper issue ever published. A funeral invite for my grandpa. And look what is a super scary letter. The USA has just imposed domestic martial law.
Okay, you win this episode. You win. I bow down. That's amazing. Is that available for high schools to perform?
Yep, The Postman the Musical. It's just called Postman! ! By the way,
that was great.
In case you're wondering what time code in the movie we're at right now, I regret to inform you that we are only 1 hour or roughly 1/3 into the runtime of The Postman.
I know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but isn't that insane? Like, it takes so long for him to become the Postman. I couldn't believe it.
Yep. And may I remind you, Kevin Costner hasn't even met his best bud yet, the ambitious but sometimes reckless teenager, Ford Lincoln Mercury, and he certainly hasn't been approached by his love interest, Abby, played by Olivia Williams.
Would you like to dance?
I don't know if I can. I think I'm still on duty.
Now, when it comes to Abby, I use the term love interest, but that is certainly not how their relationship starts out. In fact, Abby and her husband only need Kevin Costner for his ability to reproduce. Now, wait a minute. Where have I seen this exact scene before?
I've got a proposition for you, Marina. I'm not staying.
Oh, we're not asking you to. All we want is you see.
We can look to our own for impregnation, but too much of that sort of thing gets undesirable.
That's right, Waterworld. In Waterworld, there is a different woman begging Kevin Costner to give her a baby. Kissy time soon comes to an end, though, as Bethlehem and the Holnist Army show up to find that the town of Pineview has a bold new sense of optimism. Hey, just what the heck is going on here? It's the spirit of the Postman and a renewed hope to rebuild society. For the second time in this movie, Kevin Costner finds himself on the run from Bethlehem, but now with Abby by his side. Abby's sharp survival skills keep them alive as they travel through the brutal wilderness, until they eventually run into another United States mail carrier.
Ain't you heard of the Postman?
No. Tell us.
He's only the greatest man who ever lived. He crossed the wasteland, shook his fist at the enemy, and spit in the eye of General Bethlehem himself. He's back east with President Starkey right now.
Who told you all this?
Postmaster Ford Lincoln Mercury. He's in direct contact with the restored Congress.
Direct contact? I don't believe this.
Kevin Costner and Abby go with the mail carrier back to a camp dedicated to the new postal service, where the spirit of the Postman has inspired an entire movement. Bethlehem and his army come for Kevin Costner and his buddies yet again, but this time he has the drive and skills to fight back. In the movie's epic climax, Kevin Costner squares off against Bethlehem in the battlefield. where he reveals to both factions that he was once conscripted into the Holnist army. Using Bethlehem's all-important laws against him, Costner challenges the warlord for leadership of the army.
I should have found a way to kill you then. But you seem so strong.
Law 7! It is! This war is settled here!
We are now at 2 hours and 42 minutes into The Postman, and we still have yet to see Kevin Costner triumph over Bethlehem and the following wrap-up scene 30 years later. Like I said, this movie is long. The Postman was released in the Christmas season of 1997 and only made $5.3 million in its opening weekend. If you're wondering what Kevin Costner thinks about his massive 3-hour flop, there's a Huffington Post interview from 2014 in which he reflects on the film. Well, I always thought it was a really good movie. I always thought I probably started it wrong. I should have said something like, Once Upon a Time, because it was just like a modern-day fairy tale. It wraps itself up with a storybook ending with the statue. You know, I thought it was a pretty funny movie set against the idea of a Superman. Somebody stepping up. But in this case, it's a very humble guy who's nothing but a liar, delivers mail and burns half of it just to stay alive. So, I like the movie. And you know what? Good for you, Kevin Costner. I'm glad you like your own movie. At the very least, you made something for long, lazy Sunday afternoons. And I think there's a place in the world for that. After all, it's just like my dad used to say. Wait, what's this? The Postman? I don't know. Maybe one commercial break. Those gutters aren't going to take care of themselves.
There used to be a postman for every street in America. They wore uniforms and hats, just like this one. Getting a letter made you feel like you were part of something bigger than yourself. I don't think we ever really understood what they meant to us until they were gone.
Well done. Oh, that was great. It's almost like this is the flip side to your Wild Wild West breakdown, because when you love something, you always have such detail and insight, and also when you hate something, you have such detail and insight.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about this movie. I guess I just watched it over and over and over when I was, in my adolescence. So it just, I'm not, what do you think? I've talked for so long. Just give me 30 seconds and why don't you tell me what you thought so I can take a break.
Believe it or not, I have never seen The Postman. I had never seen it until I watched it for this. And I wish I could say I was like shocked and like bowled over, by like how bad it is. And yeah, it's not good by any means. I don't like the movie. It's just very long and boring, and there's a lot of laugh out loud moments. And yet, with some reservations, there are kind of things I like about it, but it's not the actual execution of any of those ideas that I might think are kind of cool that I like about them. It's just the ideas themselves. I think it's a cool idea to use like the United States Postal Service as this thing that reunites, America specifically after the world falls apart. Now, if you don't mind, because I couldn't quite figure it out, there was some reference to this in the terrible opening voiceover. How did the world fall apart exactly? Was it like a civil war? Is there like a race element here that is never really, played with in the movie?
Right. If anything, this movie just makes me want to read the book, because apparently there's a lot more explanation. And you know me, whenever I see a movie of this nature, I'm always interested in like, oh, what was it? Biological weapons?
Right. Well, I think if we're going to talk somewhat intellectually about this movie, which is a lot of cliches and a lot of hero worship for Kevin Costner, let's be clear. How do you do a post-apocalyptic movie? It seems like there's two paths. There's one where you understand the thing that made the world fall apart, and you see that then played out in the present of the movie. So if it's like nuclear, radiation fallout, there's monsters who are affected by that, and everyone's life is now, for those who've survived, they're just trying to continue to survive in a dangerous environment. The other version is the Mad Max thing where the world just went mad. You're not quite sure why. And it seems like this movie wanted to do that because it wanted to focus on just like, here's how society just happened to end up after this unexplained event happened. But in Mad Max, things are so strange and so weird that they're interesting.
Right.
In this, it's just like a series of like either like blink and you'll miss them images or like little lines of dialogue that suggest like, for example, the Wholeness Army, their whole philosophy is from like a self-help book that Will Patton found. Like, that's not even a thing that's like either played for laughs or played for seriousness, because also remember, he can quote Shakespeare. And I have to imagine that Shakespeare is, slightly more, has slightly more value than this random self-help book that he pulls from. So,
right.
There's no like feeling on like the history of this world itself. We're just supposed to like kind of like go yada, 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 whatever. Just focus on Kevin Costner. Isn't it crazy what he's doing now? Can you believe it? And I think, as Mr. Costner himself said, he did not tell this story the right way
right.
for it to be engrossing in any sort of way.
It seems like Roth and Helgeland took all the interesting things you're talking about that were in the novel and just sanded off the edges. For example, the wholeness. You were talking about true apocalypse versus everyone going crazy. Like nuclear holocaust versus Mad Max. And so the beginning of this movie kind of just implies like it was something vague. In the book, it's biological weapons. But in the book, they also explain like as things were going bad and people were trying to hang on to society, the wholenists were like sabotaging like humanitarian missions and things like that. Mm-hmm. Like they were egging on the apocalypse. So the book, it really seems like the book has a lot of interesting ideas that would make it a little more tonally unique, a little more unique story. The AI thing sounds very interesting to me.
Yeah.
I kind of want to after I'm done with Battle for Brazil, which I'm still getting through, kind of want to read the original Postman. But
someday we'll do the Major Motion Problems book club of books that we've half read and have never finished.
That would be hysterical. I stopped on page 62. How about you? Really, 62? I got past the table of contents.
Maybe we should just split these books down the middle. You read the first half, I'll read the second half, and we'll just discuss it after that.
Yep.
So, like, to talk about what is actually here. So, everyone here they're not. They're pretty smart people making this movie, right? So there's this like level of like, we are telling like a Christ-like story, or we are telling some sort of morality tale, or we're telling some like, good old American hopefulness like type story. And the thing is, though, like, the stuff that actually happens in the movie is kind of mundane and uninteresting. Like, he escapes the wholeness by jumping off a bridge. He convinces this first group of people that he is, a postman and that the United States government is slowly coming, back by just telling them that, and they believe him. There's some resistance and there's some disbelief, but not that much. I kind of liked what that quote you had that Costner said, that like, it's about a guy who's trying to survive and he's burning these letters to stay warm. I wish the movie actually played more with that idea. That he is a fraud, that he's not a good guy, that he's not a hopeful person, and he's not someone who is trying to do good for whatever. That is a more interesting character journey for me. Instead, you have someone who's kind of layered, like he's kind of making some decisions for himself and some decisions for other people. He's not all the way bad and he's not all the way good either. And you just have a very boring character because of that.
Right. I agree. Okay, first hard agree of this episode. Because you don't see Kevin Costner, like, leaving Pineview with, like, a letter, like, I promise to deliver this. And you don't see him, like, have the choice, like, I'm going to burn this, and just, like, keep on my surviving actor journey. Or I'm actually going to, like, commit to this thing.
Right.
Even in The Music Man, even in the simple story of The Music Man, I think there's a moment when, like, the town of River City loves Harold Hill, even though he's conned them all, and he's about to get on the train. And he even has some line that's in the libretto of the show that's like, for the first time in my life, I got my foot caught in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you see him about to be a con man again.
Yeah.
And you're right. It almost seems like Kevin Costner was like, well, I don't really want to come off like a bad guy. And it seems like Roth and Helgeland had to massage so many things, like time for the Kris hyperfixation corner. But all these people in Pineview are getting letters from like 10 years ago, right? With stamps.
Right.
And it's saying like, there's no war. We have a pool. Everything's good. And they're like, fantastic. Wait, why are you just delivering this now? What have you been doing for the last 10 years? And there's no scene where like the mail changes over from like apocalypse mail to just like stampless, just like wasteland mail. There's no moment where they just massage it so you don't really think about it. You're just eating your popcorn, you're drinking your ice, and you're like, oh yeah, mail, whatever, it's fine.
It is weird that the focus of the movie seems to be, we just need some dialogue in these like, same looking sets that seem left over from Waterworld, but with like a lot more dust on them. We just need a little bit of dialogue in between the action and chase sequences, because there are so many Will Patton and the army just showing up and then chasing Kevin Costner again. Like, I was surprised like how many montages there were in this movie. It's been a while since I've seen a movie with multiple montages.
Yes, and also, so I think everything in this movie is leading up to the most important story point, maybe my favorite story point, where Kevin Costner is like, I'll battle you for the Klan. No, you can't. You're not a member of the Holness Army. Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, I will admit I liked that moment. I thought I was like, oh, that was a moment for me. I was like, maybe with a little bit more work, this movie could have worked, because I kind of like that.
But they really, that scene is so overwritten.
Yes.
And one of Will Patton's lines is like, Shakespeare, I remember you, the one who didn't want to fight. It's like, really? You don't remember this guy? You fought him like 4 times now.
He shaved his beard, remember? I will say, he looks completely different without the beard. He is a son of a bitch before, and he's a handsome devil afterwards.
He always wears, oh gosh, I don't want to get so negative.
Get negative.
He always wears a stupid postman hat, like a little bit off to the side.
Well, yeah, that's how you wear them if you're in charge.
Gosh, so many little, I don't know, just...
Yeah, I mean, this speaks to the idolatry that Kevin Costner apparently thought about himself, and not without reason. I like Kevin Costner. I like Kevin Costner, the actor. I really like Kevin Costner, the producer. He's somehow able to like get all these people and all these sets together and find the money for stuff. Like he is able to create this vision. I'm a little plus minus on Kevin Costner, the director, because I don't think he really knows what tone he's going for, or if the thing that he's looking for example, it's about a guy who was burning letters to stay warm and then is mistaken for like the savior of this post-apocalyptic world. If that is the focus of this story, that's a great story. None of that comes through, and that is more of a direction, issue than anything else.
You're right. I think it's almost like the biggest mistake this movie makes in that area of the movie when the story's getting going is that he looks at the postman badge and he's like, aha, I have an idea. That's what I interpreted. Like, you're right. Like, if he were just like on the trail, someone like, ambushes him, has a gun, like, wait, no, I'm delivering mail. Like,
yes.
And then you put that scene where it's like, do you know this person? No. This person? No. This person? They mean so much to me.
Yeah.
Come to our town.
It's so weird that the movie doesn't do that.
Yep.
Because that's just such a very clear thing, and like it's kind of fun to watch. With it's the sort of coincidence that great movies. Now, okay, I want to be careful. It's the sort of coincidence that solid movies can be built on, and if they're executed well, can become more than solid. Can be something great. Here's a question for you: why is there a reference to Richard Starkey as president when you have Tom Petty in the movie? And it's implied that is Tom Petty. Did I hear that right? Like, he says, you're famous. And Tom Petty goes, used to be. Like, is that supposed to be Tom Petty? Like, the implication being he has survived and is now mayor of this town or what, whatever? Like, I'm not saying this is a great joke, but wouldn't it be funny if he said the President of the United States' name is Thomas Petty? And that, sounds like a nice presidential name, and you won't be confused, Kris, because Richard Starkey is a bit of a thinker, I'll give you that. And then later, he meets the actual Tom Petty. Wouldn't that be cool?
No. No, this was like a cameo in a children's movie.
It was.
This would be like in Spy Kids 6 if Alton Brown showed up and said, "Wow, looks like you guys are really cooking," and looked at the camera or something. It's also at a part in the movie where it's like, gosh, just cut it out. Just cut it out.
Well, I mean, there's no need to meet a new character because he also doesn't change the trajectory of what the Postman is trying to do at that point either. He just says, you're famous around these parts. It's like, we already know that. He established, somehow a whole postal service got established over his one little lie, which all happens off screen. So yeah, it's a little mind boggling. I'm just trying to play with what they gave us here. I was kind of charmed by the country stomp version of Come and Get Your Love that they play in one of the multiple town dance sequences. Like, oh, look at that song survived somehow. I don't know. It's just like we've seen all of these ideas done better later. And also the whole Shakespeare thing being the thing that survives in a post-apocalyptic world. Do you remember the show it came out in 2019, 2020, Station 11?
No, I totally forgot that. What's that?
Station 11 at the time was tough to watch because it is about a world that falls into sort of a wasteland because of a biological agent. And of course, we were dealing with the pandemic at the time. In this broken down world, the thing that is bringing people back together is a troupe of traveling Shakespeare actors performing Shakespeare.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, and now it's completely different. It's completely different and is way better done than anything in The Postman. But it does speak to this idea that we all as humans like this idea that something about our culture, something about the things that we think are special and hold dear now might be able to do some good later, long after we would think they would have an expiration date. So that's always going to be a compelling idea. But in this, it's like, okay, so Will Patton is both an idiot, but he is fairly good at exerting his rule, over these people. But he also is able to quote Shakespeare. The whole Shakespeare off thing is so unintentionally hilarious.
Right? It's so cringy. Apparently, and I think it's in the novel, General Bethlehem before the apocalypse was a copier salesman, which is kind of interesting.
That's funny. I like that's a good detail,
Yeah. You're right. Gosh, I rolled my eyes so many times. And one of the biggest eye rolls was, you spelled tyranny wrong, repeating that line twice. It's just like, oh, God, that's what you do in a Broadway musical to that needs economy. And you're just doing this eye roll corny line to really put up some symmetry in these two scenes.
Why didn't they lean into the comedy of this more? I think that's honestly one of the film's biggest failings. It's so serious. It thinks what it's showing us is so interesting, but it's not. We've seen it before, and apparently in 1997, the audiences had seen it before as well. So why not take that? I'm not saying go full Adam Sandler as a bumbling guy, around in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, but why not try to find more humor in this? There's something about this Kevin Costner character, in the way that you just pitched the scene, which is better than any scene in the actual movie, of him accidentally becoming the postman and then ending up in this town where some lady says, hey, you need to impregnate me because my husband can't. He keeps bumbling into more and more things and becoming more and more responsible, saddled with more and more responsibility until he becomes the thing that, had this legend that has built around him. Instead, it's he's kind of a legend already in the sense that he is able to escape from the Wholeness Army, and then he just keeps becoming a legend from there with little to no effort.
Yep. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Waterworld is such a better movie.
Oh, it is. I mean, like, for all its issues, it is a way better movie.
I mean, just thinking about the Kevin Costner character and his arc, like, he really does not give a darn about anyone at the beginning of that movie. And it's cool and funny and hardcore and a little quirky, like you mentioned. Like, why isn't this movie funnier? Why are all the jokes like C-?
Mm-hmm.
In Waterworld, at least do you remember in the oil tanker when Kevin Costner drops the flare down to like blow it up?
Yeah.
And you cut to the guy in the boat whose job in his entire life is just to measure the level of the oil in the tanker.
Right.
So he's miserable, and he just sees the flames coming at him, and he says, "Oh, thank God," and he blows up. Like, that's really funny.
That's a unique joke that could only be told in that movie, and that's what makes it work so well.
You just imagine, like, Kevin Costner at the Cannes Film Festival when this premiered or wherever, you know, and the Ford Lincoln Mercury cut, just like him, like, looking around the audience and pointing the screen like, see, he likes to drive cars. So his name is Kevin. Shut up.
It's disappointing because, like, I do root for Kevin Costner, I guess. I like him in movies. I like the movies that he has been the major creative force behind. But then it's like, it's stuff like this, and then, unfortunately, Horizon most recently, which I'll say Horizon is a better movie than this. There are moments and, like, sequences and sections of Horizon that I think really are good and rose to the level that he wanted them to be. But, like, I don't know. It's just like a mess.
Yep.
And this one, unfortunately, has the worst thing it does is, like, the tone is so childish and so, like, bizarrely optimistic about nothing and still says nothing that it's just like, oi, 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 like, you spent all your time doing this.
I want to give you a little brain exercise. So in this podcast, I have established, and I pay you royalties for this, the James defense, which is when you see when you see like some sort of erotic thriller and it's bad, and then you think, oh, what if Alfred Hitchcock directed it? And then you think, oh, well, yeah, it would probably work maybe. So the Kris defense, which you have to pay me royalties for,
sure,
is saying movie like The Postman. Well, what if the Coen brothers directed it in 2025?
Yes, okay, yes, I like this.
They would like, imagine if Kevin Costner starred in No Country for Old Men, and how like he would just like put so much sentimentality and just like over the top commentary into it. Sort of what he did with The Postman. The Coen brothers would they would be like that ending with the statue and the kid and the man saying, that was me that Kevin Costner gave the letter to, and that drawn out scene with the horse. It'd be like, get rid of all of that.
Right.
That's not what this novel is. This novel is hardcore, like you said. It's a little quirky, and we gotta get through the realism of this. We don't have time to treat it like a big kiddie sentimental 3-hour epic. We have a tight, brutal survivalist story to tell.
Who would Kevin Costner play in No Country for Old Men? Who were you casting him as? Josh Brolin?
No, Anton Chigurh.
Oh.
You would. Hey, friendo. I think I'm gonna let my son Superman die. What are you talking about? I think I'm gonna. And he puts out his hand to do the no thing.
Yeah.
Have you seen my cowboy content? What are you talking about? My cowboy content. I have movies. I have TV shows. Literally months worth of cowboy content.
Oh, dude, that just reminded me. There were moments where I thought this movie was like the right level of batshit insane and not just like a boring level of batshit insane. Like the wholeness, they have a drive-in movie theater that is like a gorge with a lake, right? And there is a houseboat projecting the Sound of Music on a wall and on a cliff face. And there's just everyone sort of gathered around this giant gorge to watch the movie. That was like, what was the point of that? Like, I thought it was like bizarrely kind of cool, but like, was that to just like keep everyone numb or something? Like, what was it? Like, what a weird thing to show in this movie.
Kevin Costner spends some time with oh, by the way, it's wholenists. It's such a hard word to say.
What did I? Wholeness. Holness. Wholeness, right?
Sorry, there's a T. HOLNIST. Holnist, named after Nathan Holn.
Whatever.
I know. Terrible word to say over and over and over. But I like how Kevin Costner spends time with them at the beginning of the movie with that giant pit, which was apparently a huge expense for the production. And just like sort of showing that the men in this aren't just like, and they're not like just extras. Like they're in this because they get food and shelter and like a safe life. And you get to see like the cowards in this little society who are just, going along with it because they get fed and, it doesn't matter to them. I like that a lot.
Well, that's a little bit of world building and shows the different factions that are running the wasteland. There's stuff there. And in terms of performances, I didn't mind Will Patton. I thought he actually got a pretty good tone down of this guy is a fool, but he has built his own legend to protect himself. Like I thought that all worked pretty well, and I give him credit for taking it as seriously as his boss did, who I wouldn't say Costner is bad in this movie, but he is kind of not great in his other capacities on this film. And to be clear, I love Kevin Costner, and if he came into the Major Motion Problems studio ever, he would beat our asses to a bloody pulp, and there's nothing we could do about it. So
I wouldn't be there. I would be somewhere else. I'm good.
Oh boy.
Anything else to say about 1997's The Postman?
The Postman and Titanic. I do want to. This isn't an apology to our listeners, but this was a tough year for us. It feels like there's not a lot to say about these movies. So I feel good having looked back on this year, and I do want to give the Razzies some credit. I'm usually pretty hard on the Razzies for being like mean-spirited and misguided in their taste and judgment, but this is the kind of movie that I get why it's fun to have an award about, because you can razz some guys who kind of, really thought a lot of themselves and can also take a punch as well. So this was a fun experience. I won't recommend anyone watch The Postman, but we have seen worse films on this podcast.
Yes, we have. I wish I got the intended feeling that Kevin Costner was trying to express in The Postman. I wish I felt patriotic and optimistic, but unfortunately I'm just rolling my eyes so hard that they're falling out of my head. So.
That wraps up our discussion on Titanic and The Postman.
If you like what you've heard, please give us a follow and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want to hear me talk for another 6 hours about The Postman, let's set it up. Email us at majormotionproblems@gmail.com.
We end every episode of Major Motion Problems by randomly selecting our next set of best worst pictures. Kris and I are on the cutting edge of artificial intelligence, sort of like that supercomputer that was cut from The Postman.
Right.
So let me just ask ChatGPT to pick a year between 1980 and the present. Well, it's selected 1999, which we've already done. 1999 was, of course, American Beauty and Wild Wild West.
Yep, reroll.
Do we want to give the prompt any specificity, like, a certain time frame to pick from, or just keep it open?
Well, do you want to do the 1980s?
Yeah, sure. 1985, which we've already done. That was Out of Africa and Rambo First Blood. Okay.
One more time.
1982. Ooh, exciting. Okay. Well, do you want to go with 1982 or do you want to re-roll?
Let's do it. I have no idea what the movies are.
Yeah, I feel like one of them is going to be very long, and I don't actually know how to pronounce the other one.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, in 1982, at the 55th Academy Awards, winner of Best Picture was Gandhi, starring Major Motion pal Ben Kingsley and directed by Richard Attenborough.
Huh.
So I'll admit it, I've never seen Gandhi. It's just not high on my list of movies to watch. The Razzie winner at the third Razzie Awards is a movie called Inchon.
Never heard of it.
I haven't. Let's just do a quick. All right, so let's see here. 1980 Battle. Oh, okay. It's a All right, this is just the Wikipedia. We do more research than Wikipedia. It is a 1981 war film about the Battle of Incheon, considered to be the turning point of the Korean War.
Wow, that got a Razzie? That's weird.
It is included among the... It was a huge financial loss, negative reviews, worst films of all time. Yep, never heard of this. Cast includes, though, one Laurence Olivier.
Wow, so it sounds like it's going to be a big swing type of bad movie.
Sounds like big swing type of bad movie, and big swing type of Oscar winner. Not unlike the films we just experienced this time around.
Yeah, wow, gosh.
Okay, Kris gets Gandhi, an epic biographical drama about peace, resistance, and transformation. James gets Incheon, a chaotic big-budget war film known more for its troubled production than its reception. Thanks, ChatGPT.
I'm just putting it out there because I used my cheat card with American Beauty and Wild Wild West. Would you like to use your cheat card, or are we committing to this?
Yeah, we're committing to this. I don't want to see another Best Picture for a while, so I'll take the chaotic big-budget war film.
All right, let's do it. 1983.
Yeah, wait, what? What year did we pick? Yes, 1982. We picked 1982.
1982.
Jesus. This was a great ep, Kris. Thank you as always. And thanks so much for listening, everyone. We will see you next time for more history with Kris and James.
Woo!